Hello, me lovelies. I just thought I'd do this quick video to clarify something about the British legal system that people seem to be getting wrong on YouTube in regard to Paddy Conroy's culpability if anything was to happen to Scotty G when he's on his farm. And for some odd reason which I can't work out, they're claiming that also some of them that Smoking Sheriff would be held culpable if anything was to happen to Scotty G. Now, the favourite scenario that's built up is that Scotty G, when he's high, in a stupor, goes and falls into the river on Paddy's farm and drowns. And there's these predictions, oh, it's going to be terrible, Paddy will be pulled in, oh, it'll be horrific, they'll be done for manslaughter and all this kind of thing. I'll explain how the British legal system works. If you are to be convicted of a criminal offence, whether it's murder or manslaughter or any crime whatsoever, two things have to be tested. Actus reus, meaning guilty act, and mens rea, guilty state of mind. Now, that's the rough translation of what they mean. But what it means is you've got to have, actus reus, you've got to have an action that can be defined as criminal. Mens rea means you've got to have the intention to carry out that act that is defined as being criminal. You've got to have that in your mind that that was going to happen. Anyway, so let's look at these two scenarios that I'm going to come up with now to show how the law works. Scenario 1. Paddy sees, let's say Paddy and Sheriff. Paddy and Sheriff are watching Scotty and he stumbles and falls into the river. And they stand there, do nothing and just watch him drown. Second scenario, Paddy and Sheriff notice Scotty walking by the river, stumbling, and they go over and push him into the river and watch him drown. What would happen in those two circumstances? The first circumstance where Scotty falls in, but they haven't actually pushed him or made contact with him. They just watch him drown. Absolutely nothing could be done to either of them. Nothing at all. Simply because in the English legal system, you have a chain of causation that links the action to the individual who is being prosecuted over a criminal act. There's no requirement in the British legal system for anyone to go to the aid and help someone that's in distress, say drowning. They don't have to. Unless, and this is the only exception to it, unless that person specifically has a legal obligation to take care of that person and has a duty to ensure the safety. That's usually the parent of a child or the guardian of a child. There's also vicarious liability where a business or an employer, whatever, or a service provider can be held liable, but that's usually due to gross negligence. That's where it is. Now, with Scotty being an adult, he may be a vulnerable person, but he's an adult. Paddy Conroy can invite him onto the farm, but he's not legally responsible if Scotty decides to go into a stupor and go out and walk and take the risk of falling into the river and drowning. He's not legally responsible. And also, the reason why he could stand there, and so could Smoking Sheriff or anyone, and watch him drown, is because in the British legal system, There is no requirement to get involved in a dangerous situation due to the fact if they jumped in the water, a panic could ensue and one of them could be killed in the process as well. That's why they couldn't be charged for not doing it. Now, of course, not all countries have that. Famous example of a country that's completely different rules is France. In France, you'd have to help out, even though you didn't push the person into the river or whatever situation, dangerous situation they're in, you'd have to help some way. But I say in the British legal system, they take the view that if it was, they compelled people that they had to try and save someone in distress, that could, in fact, endanger them in the process. So that's why the British legal system doesn't make that requirement. Of course, the second scenario, what happens if Paddy or Smoking Sheriff or both of them pushed Scotty into the river and he drowned? Yes, then they'd be culpable. They'd either be culpable of manslaughter, where the mens rea is shaky and in doubt the guilty sense of mind. They might have done it as a joke, and this joke they realised didn't go far. They didn't have the intention to actually kill him, but they'd still be charged with it. Or if it was more sinister that they wanted to kill him and it could be established they did, they'd be done for murder. But as it stands now, people going on that Paddy's going to be culpable, Paddy could get in trouble if anything happens to Scotty. He can't. Scotty's an adult. He may be a vulnerable adult, but he's not considered vulnerable in the way that someone with extreme special needs would be, or someone, a child would be. And also, they've got no legal obligation giving them a shed to live in. That's not providing any kind of vicarious, what they call vicarious liability on Paddy Conroy. He's not vicariously liable for anything that Scotty does. So I thought I'd explain that. Now, I remember once when I was studying law many decades ago, the teacher said something to us that always stuck out in our minds. He said, always remember, don't try to put logic into the British legal system. He said it isn't always logical or sound fair. And that's because the legal system in Britain is evolved over centuries of precedents being created. So it doesn't always make sense. And you get people, armchair lawyers they call them, who sit there and they think because moralistically something should be done, that means that there must be a law that exists. In other words, i.e. Paddy will get into trouble because Paddy put him on his farm. Paddy allowed him to be in that position. No, it doesn't always work like that. Some British laws are totally illogical. And one thing I learned and always say is that not every wrong that happens to someone has a legal redress. It just doesn't. Some wrongs you have to just put up with and get on with it, because legally you can't redress that situation. Anyway, I hope that's clarified things to people. Nothing could happen to Paddy. Nothing could happen to Smoking Sheriff if Scotty wandered along, fell in the river and drowned, unless they pushed him in the river in the first instance. So I'll leave that, my lovelies. Bye-bye for now.